Naima Ellis was already awake before the alarm buzzed. She hadn't needed it in 6 years. Her body ran on muscle memory now. Wake before Kayla, prep breakfast, pack lunch, review her work schedule, slip into her scrubs. No room for delay. No room for mistakes. The kitchen light flickered to life as she moved through the modest 2-bedroom apartment. Morning light spilled in from the blinds, landing softly on the framed photo above the table. In it, Kayla beamed wide, showing off a gap-toothed smile and a glitter-glued Mother's Day card that read, "Bestest Mommy." Naima opened the fridge. 3 eggs, 1 slice of cheese, 2 apples, just enough to work with. She cracked the eggs into a bowl and whisked in silence, letting her hands take over. Her mind, though, drifted where it always did in the quiet, back to a time when her mornings weren't so full of purpose or pain. A time when she wasn't alone in the kitchen. A time when the name Zayden Calloway still meant safety. It had been 6 years since she saw his face. 6 years since he made her a promise he couldn't keep. And yet, not a morning passed without some trace of him in her thoughts. Back then, she was 24, full of hope and humility, working night shifts in the pediatric ER, reading second-hand romance novels during her breaks, laughing with co-workers even when she was too tired to breathe. The night she met Zayden, he came in with his godson, wide-eyed and panicked after the boy fell off his bike. He waited for hours, patient and humble, no name-dropping, no attitude. He bought coffee for nurses, asked questions with care. She remembered the way his eyes softened when she handed him back his ID after discharge. "Can I thank you over dinner?" he'd asked. Naima offered a small smile. "I don't date patients' families." He held up his hands. "Fair enough. But if you change your mind..." He pulled out a plain business card, no logo, no title, just a name and number. No pressure. She tucked it in her locker and ignored it, for a while. 2 weeks later, on a rainy Thursday, she called. He picked up on the first ring. Their first dinner was unremarkable. No candlelight, no declarations, just soup, bread, and a surprisingly deep conversation about childhood books and city traffic. But he listened, fully, like what she said mattered. Dinner turned into weekend walks. Walks became routines. Their rhythm was quiet and steady. No flashy photos, no social media tags, just 2 people finding peace in each other. But cracks formed. He never introduced her to his mother, a well-known real estate mogul who made headlines for her political donations and pristine family image. Naima didn't ask. Zayden didn't offer. He missed her nursing school graduation, citing a last-minute trip. She forgave him. He cut their Friday dinners short to take business calls. She understood. When he did show up, he brought her tulips, held her like home, kissed her forehead like a promise. She convinced herself it was enough. That love could fill in the gaps. It wasn't. The scent of browning eggs pulled Naima back to the present. She sprinkled in cheese, folded it gently, then turned off the burner. Behind her, a small voice whispered, "Mama?" Kayla stood in the hallway, still half asleep. Her curls were wild and beautiful, her bunny slippers crooked. Naima crouched and opened her arms. "Good morning, sunshine." Kayla walked into her hug. "Is it cereal day?" Naima smiled. "Scrambled eggs today." "But we can do cereal tomorrow." Kayla nodded, then pulled back slightly. "You look sad," she said. Naima blinked. "Do I?" Not crying sad, just remembering sad. Naima's breath caught. Children saw more than they were supposed to. "I'm okay, baby. Just tired." Kayla didn't press. She wandered toward her chair, dragging her giraffe plush behind her. Naima stood up slowly and turned her attention to the plates, but her heart was still in that hallway. He was coming back. She didn't want him to. She didn't invite him, but she'd seen the email. The new donor at the pediatric clinic, Zayden Calloway. He was stepping back into her life, into Kayla's orbit, into a story she'd long since closed. Later that morning, after breakfast and hugs and goodbye kisses, Naima sat behind the wheel of her car and stared at the steering wheel longer than she meant to. She was scheduled for her first shift as head nurse at the clinic. her biggest promotion yet. Kayla had skipped into school with her backpack bouncing, her smile easy and wide, and all Naima could think about was whether he'd recognize her, whether he'd recognize Kayla, whether he'd even care. She had once loved him with everything she had, and he left her holding nothing but a secret and a child growing inside her. But she had rebuilt, on her own. And now, the man who walked away was about to meet the girl she raised without him. Naima adjusted her badge before stepping out of the car. Naima Ellis, RN, it read. Simple. True. She whispered to herself, barely audible. Let him see what he lost. And then she walked through the clinic doors. Ready, strong, unshaken. The cold morning she found out she was pregnant had started like any other. A slow shuffle to the bathroom, a lingering stare at the mirror, a wave of nausea that made her sit on the edge of the tub, wondering if it was just stress. But something felt off. Not wrong, just different. The test turned positive almost instantly. 2 pink lines. Unmistakable. Her hands trembled, but she didn't cry. She wasn't shocked. She had suspected. Deep down, she already knew. Naima sat quietly on the bathroom floor, knees drawn to her chest. The room was still. Her heart wasn't. She thought about telling him right away, calling Zayden before work. But no, this needed to be said face to face, with calm, with truth, with hope. She picked her favorite Italian spot downtown, one they'd been to for her last birthday. Small table by the window, dim lighting, warm bread. She printed out the ultrasound photo and placed it in an envelope. She even curled her hair. It was supposed to be a good night. Zayden was 20 minutes late. When he arrived, he was flushed and distracted, phone still in hand, mumbling something about traffic and meetings. He kissed her cheek and barely made eye contact. I got promoted, he said as he sat down, grinning. Officially, Miami's on the table now. My mom's thrilled. Says it's the kind of growth move she's been pushing for. Naima smiled, though it felt brittle. That's great. He kept talking. Numbers, office space, Miami beachfront real estate. He didn't notice the envelope on the table until the waitress brought water. She slid it toward him. There's something I want to share too. Zayden opened the envelope slowly. He pulled out the ultrasound image, tilted it slightly, then looked at her. This is... She nodded. I'm pregnant. Silence. Zayden's grin faded. His hands lowered to the table. His eyes, usually so expressive, went still. This is real? He said finally. Yes. Another pause. I need time to think. Naima blinked. Think? He pushed the envelope aside gently. It's a lot, Naima. I wasn't expecting this. No one expects it. But it's here. This is happening. Zayden leaned back, fingers laced together. Miami's not optional. My mom's been building that entire wing of the firm around this. She's planning press releases, partnerships. This would crush all of that. Her heart dropped. So you're worried about press more than the fact you're going to be a father? I'm saying I'm not ready to ruin my future for a maybe. There it was. Not a child. Not their child. A maybe. Naima pushed back her chair slowly. She stood, calm, even though her hands were shaking. I didn't ask you to ruin anything, Zayden. I asked you to listen, to be honest. And now I've heard you loud and clear. He stood too. Wait, Naima, don't twist. I'm not twisting anything. Her voice was low, steady. You made a choice. She left the restaurant without another word. That night, she packed the few things he kept at her apartment, his hoodie, his charger, the spare toothbrush, and left them in a bag by the door. She never called him again, and he never came looking. The following months were survival on autopilot. Naima worked long hours to cover rent and save what she could. Her cousin Jordan helped when she could, bringing over meals, helping, rearrange the nursery, crying with her when the crib finally arrived. She went to appointments alone, took birthing classes with strangers, prayed in the quiet hours of the morning when she felt the baby kick and fear gripped her chest. But she never broke, not fully. The night Kayla was born, the delivery room was dim and quiet. No one waiting outside. No nervous pacing. Just her. And when they placed the tiny baby girl in her arms, all Naima could do was whisper over and over again, "I've got you. I've got you. I've got you." Kayla had soft curls and Zayden's mouth. Her eyes were wide and alert from the start. Naima wept. From pain. From joy. From relief. From the weight of doing it all alone. But she never told Zayden. Not once. She decided in those early hours that her daughter would grow up loved, supported, and never used as leverage or guilt. She refused to give her child a half-interested father. She refused to be the woman begging a man to show up. So she erased him from the nursery walls, from the baby blanket registry, from her future. Zayden Calloway became a chapter that ended before the story could begin. Naima returned to work after 6 weeks. Shorter than she wanted, but bills didn't pause for motherhood. She pumped breast milk in supply closets, took cat naps in the nurse's lounge, held other people's babies while thinking about her own. Her body ached, her back throbbed, but she endured. Kayla grew fast. First smile at 7 weeks. First laugh at 3 months. First word, "Mama," before her first birthday. Naima recorded every milestone. Snapped pictures, made albums, but she never mailed them to anyone. No one called asking about the baby. No family from his side. No accidental run-ins. Zayden had disappeared. And for a while, she liked it that way. Until last week. Until the clinic's board meeting. The staff newsletter. The welcome announcement about the new donor, Zayden Calloway. He was back in Detroit. And this time, he'd be walking right through the doors of her workplace. Naima stood at her closet mirror that night, watching Kayla sleep behind her on the bed. She smoothed the collar of her blouse and tried to steady her breathing. She wasn't the same girl he walked away from. She was stronger, sharper, tired, yes, but tempered like steel. He might be walking in as a polished CEO, but he'd be looking straight into the eyes of the woman who raised his daughter, alone. She whispered to herself in the dark, let him see her, let him see everything he left behind, and she turned out the light. The pediatric ER was unusually quiet that night. A soft drizzle tapped against the windows as nurses charted quietly, phones buzzed low, and Naima Ellis sipped her lukewarm coffee while scanning a child's chart on her tablet. She had 3 more hours left on her shift, and all she wanted was a sandwich and a warm blanket. Level 2. The intercom cracked. Incoming minor head trauma, age 7. ETA, 4 minutes. Naima was already up, pulling gloves on by the time the paramedics rolled through the doors. A young boy lay on the gurney, conscious but dazed. His forehead was bleeding, his palms scraped raw. Right behind him trailed a sharply dressed man with worry plastered across his face. "Braden, baby, you're okay," the man said gently, kneeling beside the stretcher. "Uncle Z's got you." "Banged his head coming off a bike," one paramedic said. "Helmet saved him from worse." Naima stepped forward with calm focus. "Vitals? Stable. Just keep an eye for signs of concussion." The man, tall, broad-shouldered, with quiet intensity, nodded. "Can I stay with him?" Naima gave him a quick glance. "If you stay calm, yes. He's in good hands." He nodded again, this time quieter. "I promise." Over the next 30 minutes, Naima cleaned and dressed the boy's wounds while gently checking his neuro-responses. The man, Zayden, she later heard someone call him, sat quietly beside the bed, letting Braden squeeze his hand through the stinging and tears. He didn't bark orders or demand attention. He didn't name-drop or wave around his wallet. He just watched, asked smart questions, and thanked every nurse who walked in. Unusual. Naima couldn't help but glance his way as she finished the final bandage. "You're a good uncle," she said simply. Zayden exhaled. "I'm learning. His mom's out of the country this week. I was trying to be the fun one." "Fun doesn't usually end in stitches," Naima said dryly. That made him laugh. Point taken, he held out his hand. "Zayden Calloway." Naima removed her glove before shaking it. "Naima Ellis." His grip was warm, steady, not too firm, just present. "Thank you for helping him," he said, voice low and sincere. "For helping us," Naima offered a nod and moved to update the chart. "It's my job." As he was discharged, Zayden turned back at the doorway. His godson was munching on a lollipop in the lobby, forehead wrapped like a tiny mummy. "Naima," Zayden called softly. She looked up. He reached into his jacket pocket and walked back toward the nurse's station. From his wallet, he pulled out a clean white business card. "No pressure," he said, placing it near her elbow. "Just, if you ever feel like talking off the clock." Naima arched a brow. "I know, probably not your thing. Just thought I'd say thank you the old-fashioned way." He didn't wait for a response. Just smiled once, slow and knowing, and walked away. Naima stared at the card. It had no company name, no title, just Zayden Calloway and a local number. She slipped it into her scrubs pocket, didn't toss it, didn't think about it again until 2 weeks later during her break, with too much silence and too many questions spinning in her head. Naima didn't tell anyone about the call she made. She kept it short. "Hi, it's Naima." From the hospital, Zayden responded like he'd been waiting. "You called, only to say thanks." "That's all." "You sure that's all?" Naima paused. "I like pizza. If you're still offering a thank you." His smile was audible through the phone. "Pick a night." They met at a corner bistro with brick walls and checkered tablecloths. He wore jeans and a black jacket. She wore simple curls and a denim dress. It wasn't a date, not officially. But when he opened the door for her and waited before ordering until she chose her dish, she felt it. Respect, interest, no rush. They talked about everything: her job, his start in real estate, books they'd read, why Detroit felt both broken and beautiful. He asked about her shifts, not her salary. She noticed how he laughed with his whole face. No phone at the table, no glancing at texts. "Your godson," she said over dessert. "He looked so much like you." "He's not mine by blood," Zayden replied. "But I've been around since the day he was born. He's one of the best parts of my life." Naima's lips curved. "That's rare." Zayden sipped his water. "So is honesty. I like that about you." She blinked, unsure how to answer that. He changed the subject, gently. "Do you always keep people at a distance? Do you always walk around offering business cards to nurses?" He grinned. Touché. They didn't kiss that night. He walked her to her car, hands in his pockets, eyes soft. "I'd like to see you again," he said. She looked at him carefully. "No games, Zayden. I don't do charming." "I'm not playing," he replied. "I meant what I said." She watched him for another beat, then nodded once before unlocking her door. That was the beginning, and she had no idea it would lead to so much joy, and eventually so much pain. It started with weekend calls, short at first, just checking in, asking about her shifts, sending her funny memes at odd hours. Then came late-night texts that turned into early morning good mornings. Zayden had a way of being present without overwhelming her. He never pushed. He always waited. Naima didn't know what to do with that kind of patience. They began to meet every other week, then every week, and by the 3rd month, he was helping her carry groceries to her door and lingering a little too long on her porch. One rainy Friday night, after walking her up the stairs in a soaked grey hoodie, he finally asked, "Can I come in?" Naima looked at him, the rain beading down his jawline, his eyes clear. She nodded. That night, he sat on her couch, flipping through her childhood photo albums while she made tea. No pretense, no pressure, just two adults getting to know the pages of each other's lives. "You were a cute baby," he said, holding up a picture of her in pigtails. "What happened?" Naima threw a pillow at him, laughing. "You're lucky you're still wet from the rain." "Lucky to be here at all," he replied quietly, setting the album down. "You don't open your door for just anyone." She paused. "I used to." Zayden's expression softened, but he didn't ask more. That was when she knew. He wasn't in a rush to fix her. He just wanted to stay. They weren't public, not because Zayden asked, and not because Naima hid it, but because it felt private, safe. They met at quiet cafes, took drives by the lake, binge-watched old movies on his couch while wrapped under blankets. Zayden cooked her breakfast twice a week. French toast, eggs, perfectly browned turkey sausage, always served with a kiss on her forehead and a smile that said, "You're home here." For once, Naima let herself breathe. And it wasn't all sweet. Zayden had rough days, when his mother would call during dinner, and his mood would shift instantly. He never explained why, just brushed it off, tightened his jaw, and changed the subject. Naima knew he loved his mother, but that love came with chains. "She doesn't know about me," Naima said one night as they sat on his balcony. Zayden was silent for a beat. "She's protective, traditional. She's rich and careful about her image. Let's call it what it is." He didn't deny it. Naima leaned back, folding her arms. "I don't need to be paraded around. But I won't be your secret either." Zayden reached for her hand. "You're not a secret, you're mine. But let me do this right. My mother, she requires finesse." She wanted to believe him. She needed to. So she said nothing more and let herself lean against him. But something inside her, a quiet instinct, filed it away. By their 1-year mark, Naima was fully in love. It wasn't the kind that swept her off her feet. It was quieter, steadier, a love built on habits, on shared silence, on the way he made sure her car's oil was changed, or how he sent lunch to her job when her shifts ran long. She'd never felt more seen. He gave her a gold bracelet with her initials engraved, not flashy, just intentional. When he fastened it to her wrist, he said, "You make everything quieter in my world." She smiled. "I thought I was loud." "No," he whispered. "Your peace." He kissed her slowly, like he meant every word. That night, they made love for the first time. No urgency, no chaos, just warmth, closeness, and breathless honesty. When she fell asleep on his chest, she wondered if this was how her mother had once felt about her father, hopeful, certain, safe. But the cracks widened the moment she graduated nursing school. He missed the ceremony. No call. Just a text the next day. "I'm sorry. Emergency meeting ran late. I'm proud of you. Always." Naima didn't reply. When he finally showed up 2 days later with a bouquet and apologies, she didn't say much. She let him in, let him talk, let him kiss her forehead. But something had shifted, and though he couldn't see it yet, she had started asking herself a question she never thought she'd ask. How long do I have to wait to be chosen publicly? One evening, she brought it up again. "What are we doing, Zayden?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've been together for over a year. Your mother still doesn't know I exist. I haven't met a single friend. And any time you have a major event, I'm nowhere near it." Zayden stood, pacing. "It's not that simple. It is for me." "Naima," he said, voice rising slightly. "I am building a future. You don't know what it's like to have every move scrutinized, every person in my life dissected." She stared at him. "So I'm too complicated to be seen with?" "That's not what I said, but it's what you meant." He sighed, sitting back down. "Look, I'm working on it, I promise. Just give me a little more time." Naima's heart twisted. She believed him, or wanted to, but belief had started to taste a lot like waiting. A month later, her period was late. 2 weeks later, she was staring down 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. The baby didn't care if Zayden's mother approved. And Naima, as scared as she was, had never felt more clear. Naima sat on the park bench with both hands resting on her stomach, watching the kids on the playground scream and tumble in joy. She hadn't told anyone yet. Not Jordan, not her co-workers, not Zayden. Just the wind and her journal. The same quiet place where she first started to believe she could love Zayden was now where she came. To process what that love had left her with, a future she hadn't expected but couldn't walk away from. The air smelled like fresh mulch and spilled juice. A girl with barrettes in her braids skipped past, holding her mom's hand. Naima swallowed the tightness in her throat. Her body didn't feel any different yet, but her spirit was shifting. She knew it the moment the test came back positive. She wasn't afraid of being a mother. She was afraid of what it would expose, that Xaden might never be the man she needed, and worse, that he never planned to be. Still, she told herself not to jump to conclusions. Not yet. He deserved the truth. The real question was, would he stand beside it or run from it? She waited 4 days, long enough to feel the weight, short enough that she wouldn't give herself room to back out. Naima picked a Friday night, one where he wasn't traveling, one where she could speak slowly without distraction. She made dinner: chicken Alfredo, Caesar salad, soft rolls, and peach tea. His favorite. The small envelope with the ultrasound sat folded under her cloth napkin. He arrived 40 minutes late. She opened the door to see him in a navy blazer, undone tie around his neck, still on his phone. "Yeah, I'll send the draft tonight," he murmured into the receiver. "Text me the investor deck in an hour." He kissed her cheek absent-mindedly. "Sorry, baby. It's been non-stop." She forced a smile and closed the door. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet. Xaden ate quickly, glanced at his phone more than her, and complimented the food without tasting it. Naima barely touched her plate. Her hand hovered near the envelope as he wiped his mouth and leaned back with a sigh. "I got the final call today," he said, eyes lighting up. "It's official. I'm being promoted, VP over the Mid-Atlantic Territory. My mother's ecstatic. She wants me to relocate to Miami by Q1. Naima sat still. "That's fast." "Yeah, it's a power move. Everything's aligning. Timing's perfect." She didn't respond right away. Her fingers tapped lightly against the envelope. "I have something to share too." He smiled. "What's that?" She pushed the envelope across the table. Xaden glanced at it, then opened it without urgency. A pause. Then a long stare. He tilted the ultrasound photo slightly. "Is this?" "Yes." Silence, not shock, just calculation. "This is real?" "Yes." He leaned back in his chair. Wow. That one word, flat, unemotional, cut deeper than a scream. Naima's chest tightened. "Wow. I mean, this is big, Naima. I wasn't expecting this. Not now." "I wasn't either." Xaden stood and walked to the kitchen window. He didn't touch his phone for once, just stared out at the parking lot, quiet, stiff. "I've worked so hard for this moment," he said finally. "Miami's not just a promotion. It's a restructure. It's the next tier of everything." Naima sat straighter. "And this baby isn't?" His voice didn't raise, but his tone hardened. "Don't do that. Don't make it sound like I'm choosing between ambition and responsibility." She stood too, jaw set. "That's exactly what you're doing." "I just need time to think." Her heart cracked. "You already did. You had time to think the second you opened that envelope." Xaden turned to face her. "Naima, come on. You said the timing is perfect. For you. I guess there's no space for anyone else in that." He opened his mouth, then closed it. She looked at him, memorizing the shape of the man she had loved. The man who made her feel safe, but only on his terms. The man who folded when pressure came knocking. "I won't beg," she said softly. "And I won't explain something to a man who should already understand what's standing in front of him. I just need—" "You don't need more time, Xaden. You need to grow up." That night, Naima curled up on the edge of her bed, clutching the ultrasound photo in both hands. She didn't cry like she thought she would. She lay there, awake, watching the ceiling fan spin, thinking about how women across the world had done this, carried alone, labored alone, parented alone. She could do it too. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. The next morning, she bagged up his few belongings: a toothbrush, a hoodie, a spare charger, a coffee mug. She left them in a box by the door. She erased his number from her favorites. She didn't block him, but she never called, and he never came looking. Naima moved out of her old apartment 3 weeks later. She didn't want to wake up every morning with memories of him in the kitchen. his voice echoing in her hallway, his scent lingering in her sheets. It was a decent place, sure, but it was his comfort zone, not hers. And this next chapter, this one had to be built on her terms. She found a small second-floor unit on the east side of Detroit. It wasn't fancy. One bedroom, creaky stairs, no dishwasher. But it had 2 windows in the living room and enough light in the morning to keep her grounded. It was hers, paid for with overtime hours and sheer willpower. She spent her weekends scrubbing it clean, folding thrift store onesies, rearranging furniture with Jordan's help. There were no pastel baby showers, no online registries, no fuss, just quiet preparation. "Are you sure you're okay?" Jordan asked one afternoon as they assembled a borrowed crib. Naima nodded without looking up. "Okay enough. You're not going to call him?" "No." "Even if he calls you?" Naima tightened the last bolt. "He won't." Jordan sat back, her face full of that familiar cousin-sister worry. "You're strong, but you don't have to be alone in this. I'd rather be alone than begged for support that should have been offered freely." Jordan didn't push again. She knew better. Naima worked through her pregnancy. 12-hour shifts, on her feet, managing pediatric rounds while her body ached and swelled. Some days she wore compression socks and hid in the break room just to catch her breath. Other days she came home, kicked off her shoes, and sat in the dark, hand on her belly, whispering to the tiny life inside. "Hi, little one. It's just me and you." She tracked every week of development, watched her body change in the mirror, listened for kicks, counted them, learned how to lie on her side at night, talked to her growing belly like it was already someone she knew. She skipped maternity shoots, skipped shopping malls, skipped baby name apps, but she kept one name in her heart from the start: Kyla. Short, soft, strong. The day Kyla arrived, snow was falling. Naima labored alone in a room lit by machines and quiet beeps. The nurses were kind. One stayed with her during the worst of it. But when the pushing started, Naima clenched the side rails and screamed through gritted teeth with no hand to hold. And still, she did it. When they placed the tiny girl on her chest, Naima's tears came so hard they shook her body. Kyla's skin was warm against her, her cries fierce and sharp. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a tiny fist curling against her mother's chest. Naima whispered over and over again, voice cracking, "I've got you, I've got you, I've got you." Her first night home with Kyla was chaos. The baby didn't stop crying for 3 straight hours. Naima tried feeding, changing, burping, rocking. Nothing worked. She paced barefoot across the living room floor, bouncing her in her arms, eyes swollen from exhaustion. At 3:22 a.m., Kyla finally drifted to sleep on Naima's chest. And Naima sat down on the floor right where she stood, her back against the wall, still cradling her daughter, too tired to cry. It was the most beautiful moment of her life, and the loneliest. 3 months later, the rhythm returned. Naima became a master of one-handed multitasking, bottle in one hand, charting on her laptop with the other. Kyla began to smile, coo, reach for things. Jordan took her on weekends when Naima needed sleep, but no one ever asked where Kyla's father was. And Naima never volunteered the answer. She framed a photo of them, her holding Kyla in a yellow wrap, eyes closed, both of them peaceful. She kept it on her nightstand. Kyla was small but mighty, just like her mother. At Kyla's first birthday, Naima baked a carrot cake from scratch and invited 3 friends and Jordan's church group. They played music, passed the baby around, and clapped when Kyla smeared frosting across her cheeks. There were no expensive gifts, no lavish decorations, just laughter, love, and a full heart. After everyone left, Naima sat with Kyla in her lap on the floor and whispered, "You're the best decision I ever made." Kyla smiled, sucking on her thumb. Naima pressed a kiss to her forehead and closed her eyes. She had rebuilt her life from the broken parts, and even though Zayden's name had long been erased from her lips, Kyla carried it in her eyes. 6 years passed. Kyla became everything bright. She loved puzzles, spicy noodles, and her plush giraffe named Jelly Bean. She was curious, quick to ask questions, and even quicker to forgive. She called her mom Queen Mama after watching a Disney movie and refused to say it any other way. Naima worked her way up, took a second certification, applied for a head nurse position at a private pediatric clinic across town. She got the job. The day before her first shift, she and Kayla celebrated with hot chocolate and grilled cheese at their favorite spot. Kayla drew a crayon version of Naima in scrubs and taped it to the fridge when they got home. "You're the best nurse in the world," she declared. Naima laughed. "How do you know?" "Because you helped me grow." Naima knelt, pulled her close and whispered, "You helped me grow too." She thought that was the end of the story. But life has a way of spinning you back to the chapters you tried to leave behind. And in a few hours, Naima would walk into her new job, where the new donor's name was on the hallway wall. Zayden Calloway. The front lobby of Oakland Pediatrics smelled like lemon polish and lavender sanitizer. The walls were a soft seafoam green, meant to calm nerves. Naima stood at the check-in counter, clutching her new badge. Naima Ellis, RN, pediatric head nurse. 6 years, 1 child, 1,000 sacrifices. This wasn't just a promotion. It was proof. Proof that even when life left you behind, you could rebuild with your own hands. She greeted the receptionist, walked past a cluster of framed donor plaques, and moved toward the staff wing. Then her eyes caught the name etched in gold foil above the clinic's newest expansion room, the Calloway Children's Wellness Wing, sponsored by Zayden Calloway Foundation. Her feet stopped mid-stride. It was real. He hadn't just returned to the city. He had returned here, in her space, in her purpose. The air left her lungs, not because she missed him, not because she cared about his money, but because she'd lived 6 years without needing him, and suddenly the world had spun her back into his orbit. She didn't want him to see her like this, stronger, sharper, and wrapped in a dignity he'd never waited around to witness. Naima straightened her spine. She wouldn't flinch. The morning passed without incident. She met her new team, learned the updated system layout, checked on 2 newborns, and reviewed schedules for flu season prep. By noon, she was in the staff break room, refilling her water bottle when her phone buzzed. A text from Jordan. "You okay? You're on my mind heavy today." Naima typed back, "I'm good, just life circling back around." She didn't hit send, because in that very moment, the door near the main wing opened, and her body knew it before her mind caught up. The footsteps, the presence, that stillness. She turned, and there he was, Zayden Calloway, 6 years older, a touch broader, dressed in tailored grey slacks, a charcoal blazer over a pale shirt, clean-cut and confident. He didn't notice her at first. He was talking to a board member, laughing politely, holding a thin folder, and then he looked up. Their eyes locked. Naima didn't move. Zayden stopped mid-step. The air in the hallway thickened. He said something to the man beside him, handed off the folder, and slowly walked toward her. Naima's grip tightened on her water bottle. He stopped 2 feet away. His eyes scanned her face like it couldn't possibly be real. "Naima!" She didn't blink. "Zayden." His mouth opened, then closed. He took a half step forward. "I didn't know. I didn't expect. I work here." He nodded slowly. "You look... well, I am." Silence. He looked away for a second, exhaled, then met her eyes again. "It's been a long time." "Yes, it has. I didn't know you were in Detroit." Naima raised an eyebrow. "I didn't know you were interested." His face flinched at that, just enough to show he felt it. "I deserve that," he said quietly. She stayed silent. He started, but she cut in. "I have a meeting," she said, stepping past him, her tone level. "Enjoy your tour." He didn't stop her. She didn't look back. 30 minutes later, she stood in the hallway outside the pediatric playroom, trying to shake off the moment. It wasn't pain anymore. It wasn't even love. It was history. Standing there, dressed in custom wool and polite regret, she inhaled deeply and reminded herself She had survived worse. She had carried life without him. She had built a future from nothing. That man? That was just a familiar stranger, or so she told herself, until she heard the soft sound of sneakers against tile and a tiny voice shouting, "Mummy!" Naima turned, instinctively opening her arms. Kyla barreled into her, backpack bouncing, wide grin shining. "You forgot my snack box." Naima knelt, hugging her close. "Thank you, baby. I didn't even realize. I told Mr. Johnny to let me give it to you myself." Kyla pulled back, eyes gleaming. "There's a new man here. He's tall like a tree. I almost ran into him." Naima froze. She slowly looked past Kyla toward the corner of the hallway, where Zayden stood frozen, halfway turned, staring at the child in front of her. Kyla looked up at him, curious. "Hi." He crouched instinctively, stunned. "Hey there," he said softly. "What's your name?" "Kyla." The name hit him like a brick. He blinked, once, twice. She smiled politely. "My mommy works here." His eyes lifted to Naima, and she knew. He didn't need a test, or a speech. He knew. Every feature in Kyla's face, the shape of her mouth, her eyes, his mouth parted, voice thick. "Your mummy?" Kyla nodded and pointed. "That's her. She's the boss nurse." Then she turned and ran back toward the front with her lunchbox in hand. Zayden didn't move. Naima stood tall, arms crossed, her voice calm. "She's smart, kind. Everything I hoped she'd be." Zayden didn't speak, because in that moment, his past was no longer a theory or a regret. It was a real living girl who smiled just like him and belonged to a woman he never should have walked away from. Zayden stood rooted to the spot as Kyla disappeared down the hallway. His mind raced to catch up with what his heart had already decided the second her eyes met his. That was his daughter. No questions, no doubts. He turned back to Naima, his voice lower now. "Why didn't you tell me?" Naima's arms were still crossed. Her posture was calm, but her eyes held fire. "Because the last time I told you something important, you walked away from both of us." His jaw flexed. "I didn't know you kept the baby. You didn't ask." The silence that followed was heavier than the first. Zayden looked down at the floor, then up again. "She's beautiful. She's mine," Naima said firmly. "Every inch of her, every scraped knee, every bedtime story, every fever, every dance recital. I was there. You weren't." He started, but she shook her head. "I don't need an explanation, Zayden, not after 6 years. I'm not here to make you feel better. I'm here to work, to raise my daughter. That's it." He stepped closer, carefully. "Does she know?" "About me?" Naima's voice softened, but only slightly. "She knows she's loved. That's what matters." He looked like he had something else to say, but nothing came out. So she turned, slowly, and walked away. This time, she left him standing in silence. That night, Naima made Kyla her favorite meal, mac and cheese with grilled chicken and strawberries on the side. They watched cartoons on the couch. Kyla told stories about her class hamster, about a girl who cried because her pigtails were uneven, and about how she beat 2 boys at math bingo. Naima nodded and smiled through every word. But her heart, it wasn't at ease. Zayden knew now. And that changed everything. 3 days passed. Zayden didn't show up at the clinic, didn't call, didn't email. Naima tried not to care. She told herself that the silence was proof. Proof that he still wasn't ready. Proof that she was right to raise Kyla alone. But deep down, her chest ached in a way she hated, because no matter how strong she had become, a part of her had once believed in him. And now she had to prepare for what came next, whether he stayed gone or decided to step in. On Friday afternoon, Zayden walked into the clinic unannounced. He wasn't wearing a suit this time, just a button-down, rolled sleeves, and something softer in his eyes. Naima spotted him from the side hallway and kept walking. But he followed, calling out gently, "Naima, Please. She stopped. He stepped close, hands in his pockets. I've had a few days to think, not just about Kayla, but about you, about everything I walked away from. Naima didn't flinch. I didn't ask you to show up. This isn't a movie scene. There's no speech you can give to erase 6 years. I'm not here to erase anything, he said. I'm here because I missed everything, and I want to start showing up, even if it's not perfect, even if it's messy, even if it's too late for you and me. She stared at him. It is, Zayden nodded slowly. I figured, but maybe it's not too late for her. Naima studied his face for a long time. Consistency is the only language I'll accept now, Zayden. No promises, just action. He exhaled, shoulders dropping slightly. You'll have it. She didn't say thank you. She didn't smile, but she didn't walk away either. That weekend, Kayla got a new drawing pad. She sat at the kitchen table sketching 3 stick figures, 2 adults and a child. Naima walked past, pausing when she saw the extra figure. Who's that? Kayla shrugged. Mr. Z, he's been around more. I think he likes our juice. Naima smiled faintly. I think he likes you, baby. Kayla looked up. Is he family? Naima kneeled beside her. He's someone learning how to be part of our family. That takes time. Kayla nodded, like she understood more than she should. I can teach him, she said. And somehow, Naima believed her. If you've ever had to rebuild your life after someone let you down, or if you have had to be strong when no one showed up for you, this story is for you. It's not about perfect love. It's about choosing peace over pain. It's about showing up, even after silence. If Naima's journey speaks to your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tell us in the comments, have you ever had to walk away to find your strength? Like, share. Subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more powerful stories like this. Zayden stood at the edge of the elementary school gymnasium, clutching a paper program that read, First Grade Winter Showcase, Room 1B. He wasn't the only parent who looked unsure of where to stand, but he was the only one who hadn't been to a school event in 6 years. Kids were running around in cardboard crowns and glittered snowflakes taped to their shirts. Teachers gave gentle warnings in between cups of juice and tissue boxes. In the center of it all, Kayla was seated in the second row, legs swinging, her braids decorated with white bows. Zayden spotted her instantly. She didn't see him yet. Naima stood a few feet away, talking to another mom. She wore dark jeans, a navy blazer, and confidence. She looked like a woman who built her life with precision, who didn't have time for unkept promises or slow apologies. Zayden had texted her earlier that day asking, would it be all right if I came? She had replied with 3 words, it's not about you. He understood what she meant. Kayla turned her head. Her eyes landed on him. She stared for a beat, then waved. Big. 2 hands. Unbothered. Zayden's chest tightened. He waved back. She turned and whispered something to the girl next to her, beaming. Naima didn't walk over. She didn't tell him to leave. But she didn't smile either. And somehow, that made sense. The show started with off-key singing and crooked choreography. Zayden didn't care. Kayla was front and center, pronouncing her lines loud and clear. Winter isn't just cold. It's when love feels warmest inside. He felt the lump in his throat rise before he could stop it. Naima caught him wiping his cheek once. She said nothing. Afterward, Kayla ran up to him before anyone else. Did you see me? I didn't forget my part. You were amazing, Zayden said, kneeling. You lit up the whole room. She giggled, arms wrapped around his neck. I'm glad you came. He looked up, just in time to see Naima watching, her face unreadable. Back at the apartment, Kayla sat on the floor, surrounded by construction paper and glitter glue, crafting snowmen with Jordan while Naima folded laundry at the couch. Zayden stood near the door. He had dropped Kayla off after dinner. He hesitated, then asked softly, Can I stay a minute? Naima didn't look up. She's occupied. I just wanted to say thank you for letting me come. She's your daughter. I didn't let you. You chose. Zayden nodded. And I'm choosing again. Over and over. Naima finally looked at him. Choosing takes more than showing up at a school play. I've been showing up every day. I know, he said, his voice low. And I'm sorry for not being there. I'm not trying to undo what's already done. I'm just hoping for a chance to start where we are. Naima studied him. Kayla doesn't need disappointment. So if you're here, be here. Fully, I am. She didn't soften. But she didn't push him away either. Xaden took that as the only green light he'd earned so far, and walked out quietly. The next day, Kayla asked if Mr. Z could come over on Saturday. Naima paused. Why? Because I want to teach him how to draw a giraffe. Naima laughed. He might not be a good artist. That's okay, Kayla shrugged. He can be the student. That Saturday, Xaden sat cross-legged on the floor beside Kayla, holding a pink marker and following her instructions. Bigger neck, Daddy, like this, she said, stretching her arms wide. Naima looked up from her laptop. Xaden froze for half a second. She saw it. He felt it. Did she call me? Yes, Naima said calmly. It's what she feels. Xaden looked down at the half-drawn giraffe and smiled, throat tight. I'll do my best. By the time they were cleaning up, Kayla was napping on the couch, a blanket halfway over her legs. Naima and Xaden stood in the kitchen, quiet. She's perfect, he said, almost in awe. Naima nodded. She's everything. I don't want to miss anything else. Naima looked at him. Then don't. Xaden met her eyes. And you? Naima didn't answer that. Not yet. Naima sat on the balcony that night, legs tucked under her, sipping chamomile tea as the city hummed quietly in the background. The sky was dark but not silent, sirens in the distance, wind passing. Through the trees, the occasional bark of a dog across the street. Xaden had left an hour ago. Kayla had fallen asleep with her giraffe drawing beside her pillow. It had been a good day, and that scared Naima more than anything, because peace, when it came from someone who once shattered you, was never easy to trust. She stared at the faint city lights and thought back to the version of herself who used to wait on this same balcony for texts that never came, who used to mistake silence for strategy, absence for ambition. She wasn't that woman anymore. But somehow, here she was, wondering again what it meant when Xaden smiled at Kayla like she was his whole world, wondering what he saw now that he hadn't been man enough to see back then. Sunday morning came with pancakes and music. Kayla danced barefoot in the kitchen, waving her spatula like a baton. Can I call him again today? She asked mid-spin. Naima looked up from the stove. Didn't you just see him yesterday? Yeah, but that was Giraffe Day. Today we're making jelly bean castles. Naima chuckled. What makes you think he knows how to build one? Kayla shrugged. He can learn. Naima didn't want to say yes too quickly. She also didn't want to say no out of fear. So she leaned down and said, only if he's free. Kayla beamed, skipped off, and returned seconds later with Naima's phone. You do it. He'll say yes to you faster. Naima raised an eyebrow. That's what you think? Kayla grinned. I know. Naima unlocked the screen and hesitated for a split second before tapping his number. He answered on the first ring. Naima. She's asking for jelly bean castles. Xaden laughed. I'll be there in 20 minutes. They spent the afternoon building towers out of graham crackers and sugar. The kitchen was a mess, colored candies everywhere, frosting on the countertop, Kayla's laughter echoing off the walls. Naima watched them from the archway, arms folded, heart caught somewhere between softening and protecting. Xaden was patient, gentle, willing to be silly. Kayla gave him instructions like she was the boss, and he followed every one with a smile. At one point, he glanced over at Naima, frosting on his knuckles, eyes honest. You raised her well. Naima's throat tightened. I did what I had to. Xaden wiped his hands and stood. Can we talk for a second? She gave a subtle nod and led him to the living room, just far enough for Kayla not to hear. Xaden sat across from her, elbows resting on his knees. I want to ask you something. Not as the man who left, but as the man trying to earn space now. Naima watched him cautiously. I want to be more than just the guy she sees on weekends. I want shared school pickups, holidays, hard days too. Not just playtime and photos. She listened silently. I know I don't get to demand anything. And I know it has to be at your pace. But if there's a way, I want to be part of your rhythm, yours and hers. Naima's voice was measured. Being present means being consistent. It means you don't disappear the moment work calls or your mother frowns. She's not a factor anymore, he said, without hesitation. Naima blinked. What changed? You did. He leaned back slowly. You didn't fight to be seen. You walked away and built a life anyway. And the woman you are now? She doesn't need me, but I'm realizing how much I need to be worthy of standing beside her. Her breath caught for a moment. Not because it was romantic, because it was honest. Later that night, after Kayla was asleep and Zayden had left, Naima lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She didn't know what the future held. She wasn't ready to rewrite the past. But maybe, for Kayla's sake, she could allow a new chapter. One step at a time. Zayden was waiting by the sidewalk when Naima pulled up to the school gate the next Thursday. It was the first time he'd done school pickup without being asked. Kayla spotted him first. She unbuckled before Naima even came to a full stop. "Daddy's here," she shouted, opening the door and running into his arms. Zayden caught her with a laugh, lifting her slightly. "I missed you, Jellybean Architect." Kayla giggled. "I made a flying boat in art today. You want to see it?" "Absolutely." Naima stepped out and met his eyes. He looked casual. Navy crew neck, dark jeans, no blazer this time. Just a man trying to show up. "Hi," he said. "Hi." There wasn't tension between them, but there was caution, the kind that comes after learning to protect your peace. Naima handed Kayla's lunchbox over. "She has math homework and one sheet to color." "I'll make sure it gets done," Zayden said, securing her hand in his. "We're stopping by the bookstore. She wants a new sketch pad." Naima nodded. "Don't let her con you into 3. Zayden smirked. "No promises." As Kayla skipped ahead, he looked back at Naima. "Thank you for trusting me with her like this." She folded her arms loosely. "Trust is earned, Zayden, day by day." "I know. And the moment you disappoint her, you won't have to say a word. I'll already be gone," he said softly. Naima didn't reply, but she watched him walk away, Kayla's hand swinging in his. And for the first time in years, her heart didn't clench. It settled. Later that evening, Naima picked up a shift at the hospital. Covering for a colleague, she moved through the halls with ease, checking charts and administering care like second nature. But in between tasks, her mind wandered. She thought about Kayla's sudden ease, about how quickly she'd started saying daddy without hesitation, and she thought about how Zayden hadn't flinched once. He hadn't asked for anything, hadn't demanded forgiveness. He simply showed up. At 10:08 p.m., her phone buzzed. A photo. Kayla asleep on the couch, her legs tucked under a blanket, the new sketch pad resting on her chest. Zayden had added a caption, "Math sheet done. One castle drawn. Battery empty." Naima stared at the image longer than she should have. Then she typed, "Thank you," and for once, she meant it without caution. The next morning, Zayden dropped Kayla off early. Naima opened the door to find Kayla bouncing with energy and holding a small folded note. "She made this," he said, smiling. "Refused to let me see it." Kayla handed the note to Naima. It read in crayon, "Thank you for giving me 2 hearts, Mummy. Mine and his." Naima's fingers curled around the paper. Her throat tightened, and in that moment, she knew. Kayla wasn't the only one healing. She was too. By the following weekend, a rhythm had settled. Zayden handled school drop-offs on Mondays and Fridays. Naima picked up mid-week. Kayla's excitement didn't fade. If anything, it grew. Her stories got longer, her smile wider, her drawings fuller. And Naima adjusted. She had always been cautious with routines. Life had taught her not to depend on what wasn't promised. But this version of their life, felt less like a fantasy and more like an answer she didn't realize she'd prayed for. Saturday morning, Naima was folding laundry when Kayla came in with her hands on her hips. "Daddy said we should have a picnic today." "Can we?" Naima raised an eyebrow. "He did, huh? He said he'd bring the sandwiches if you brought the fruit. I told him you make better fruit bowls anyway." Naima smirked. "He's setting me up." Kayla's face turned serious. "You'll come too, right?" Naima paused, placing the folded shirt down. "Did he ask me to come?" Kayla shrugged. "He said, if your mom wants to join. But I want you to." That decided it. They went to Belle Isle Park. Zayden arrived early with a soft blanket and neatly wrapped sandwiches. Kayla brought her sketch pad. Naima brought the fruit, cut into shapes like she used to when Kayla was 3. The sun was out, the breeze gentle. For a moment, it felt like time had forgotten all the hard years. They laughed, ate, watched Kayla chase squirrels with her arms flapping like wings. Zayden leaned back on his hands, glancing at Naima as Kayla ran toward the trees. "You still make those perfect strawberry stars," he said. "You still eat 4 of them in 2 minutes." He chuckled. "Old habits." Naima glanced at him, her tone careful. "You seem lighter." "I am," he said. "It's strange. The more I show up, the less weight I carry. Like all this time, I thought I was protecting myself, and really, I was burying everything." She looked away. "You buried us." He didn't deny it. "And it took losing everything to realize that nothing I built without you two ever mattered." Naima's throat tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "We're not here to fix your guilt, Zayden. I'm not asking you to." Silence stretched between them. Not cold, just unfinished. Then Kayla came barreling back, laughing and out of breath. "I saw a bunny." Zayden pulled her into his lap, smiling. "You're faster than squirrels now." "I think they're scared of my shoes," she whispered like it was a secret. Naima laughed, and in that sound, something cracked, not pain. Something that felt almost like relief. Later that evening, as they packed up, Zayden walked beside Naima, while Kayla trailed ahead, talking to herself. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Naima gave a small nod. "If you hadn't gotten pregnant, do you think we would have lasted?" She didn't answer immediately. "Back then?" "No." Zayden looked over. "Why?" "Because you were too focused on becoming someone impressive, and I was too busy hoping love would be enough to impress your world." She paused. "It wasn't." He swallowed. "And now?" Naima slowed her steps. "Now, I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm just protecting peace." Zayden nodded once. "And if peace looked like partnership, real, equal, would you ever open that door again?" Naima looked him dead in the eye. "Peace doesn't knock twice, Zayden. It waits to see if you'll stay." Then she turned and called Kayla to the car. Zayden stood still for a moment, then followed behind. He didn't smile. He didn't answer. He just kept showing up. It had been 3 months since Zayden learned the truth. 3 months of shared routines, soft beginnings, and cautious steps. He had become a presence in Kayla's life, in ways Naima hadn't expected. She watched it all unfold, how he waited outside ballet class every Thursday with her favorite juice box, how he studied Kayla's spelling words before every quiz, how he sat quietly at parent-teacher night, listening like every word mattered. Zayden had always been capable, but now he was present. Still, Naima hadn't lowered every wall. Trust wasn't something she handed back. It was something he would have to continue proving with consistency, not just gestures. One crisp Friday afternoon, Naima stood in the clinic's staff lounge, sipping lemon tea. She had just finished a back-to-back run of patient check-ins when her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. But something made her swipe. "Hello?" A familiar voice answered. Cold, polished, sharp. "Naima Ellis. This is Celeste Calloway." Naima stiffened. She hadn't heard that name in years. Not since Zayden's mother swept through his life like a hurricane and made it clear who did and didn't belong. She straightened. How did you get my number? I keep records, Celeste replied, coolly. We should talk. There's nothing to talk about. Zayden disagrees, Celeste said. He's changing his entire life for you, for this child. Naima's fingers gripped the phone tighter. Her name is Kayla. She's not a business inconvenience. She's his daughter. I'm not calling to argue, Miss Ellis. I'm calling to offer you clarity. And options. Naima took a breath. What kind of options? A meeting. Lunch. Neutral ground. 1 hour. Naima's eyes narrowed. If you think I'm intimidated by wealth, I think you're smart enough to know power moves quietly, Celeste said. 12:30. The Brindell room at Louis and Lane. Click. The call ended. Naima showed up. Not because she owed Celeste anything, but because if this woman thought she could shape Kayla's world with veiled threats and glossy warnings, Naima needed her to know one thing, not anymore. Louis and Lane was the kind of upscale bistro where water came in crystal glasses and napkins were pressed linen. Celeste Calloway sat in the far booth, hands perfectly manicured, earrings that probably cost more than Naima's rent. Thank you for coming, she said as Naima approached. I'm not here to be thanked. Just say what you need to say. Celeste offered a tight smile. Still sharp. I always wondered what Zayden saw in you. Naima didn't sit. I don't need your approval, Mrs. Calloway. No, but you want his time. And I'm here to be honest about what that costs. Naima folded her arms. You mean, what you're afraid it'll cost you? Celeste arched a brow. My son is rebuilding his life. You think that happens in a vacuum? You think investors and stakeholders look kindly on domestic drama? Kayla isn't drama. She's his blood. Blood doesn't secure partnerships, Miss Ellis. Stability does. Clean portfolios, controlled narratives. Naima finally sat down, calm but unwavering. So you want me to disappear? Again. Celeste didn't flinch. I want what's best for my son, and you've already proven you can raise her without him. Naima's voice was low. That wasn't a favor. That was survival. I can offer you housing, a fund for Kayla, a clean financial start, quiet relocation, no headlines. Naima blinked. You want to pay me to vanish? Celeste folded her hands. I'm offering you freedom, comfort, insurance. Naima leaned in. You think money replaces memories, that it builds trust? Do you know what Kayla said to me this morning? She said, I think Daddy likes juice because I do. That's relationship. That's history in the making. You can't buy that. Celeste's face flickered. Naima continued, I didn't force him back into her life. I didn't ask for anything. He chose this, and if you're scared of what that says about you, that's your battle. For a long moment, Celeste said nothing. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a silver envelope. Naima didn't touch it. You can walk away with this, Celeste said, or you can brace for what comes next, because I promise you, what you've built, I can outbuild it, quietly. Naima stood. I didn't build this for you to approve. I built it so my daughter would never need your name to feel powerful. She turned and walked out without looking back. That night, Zayden knocked on Naima's door just past 8. He looked tired, like a man carrying too many weights at once. Naima opened the door, arms crossed. She called me, he said. Good, Naima replied. She should know who you've become. He stepped inside, quietly. I didn't ask her to do any of that. She's scared. You're slipping out of her grip. Zayden exhaled hard. She offered you money, didn't she? Naima studied him. Does it matter? He looked up. It does to me. She reached into the hallway closet and pulled out the silver envelope. Here, unopened. Return it. Zayden took it like it burned. Naima's voice softened. She doesn't scare me, Zayden. But she should scare you if she makes you forget why you came back in the first place. He sat down, elbows on his knees, the envelope between his fingers. I'm not leaving. I'm not asking you to, but I need you to believe me, he said. Naima's voice didn't waver. Belief comes after consistency. Keep showing up. That's the only thing that speaks to me. He nodded. Then he stood, walked back to the door, and left with the envelope in his hand. No arguments, just action. The next morning, Naima woke up to a photo on her phone. It was a trash bin outside Zayden's condo, half full. On top, the silver envelope. Underneath, a photo of Zayden holding Kayla's hand at the school gate, taken the day before. His message said, "I'm not building anything without her anymore." Naima smiled, just a little. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Zayden hadn't spoken to his mother since that night. He hadn't called, hadn't replied to her follow-up emails, or the thinly veiled messages she sent through his assistant. She had crossed a line. But more than that, she'd revealed something he could no longer ignore. Celeste Calloway saw people as tools, and for years, he'd let her treat him like one. Now, every time he tucked Kayla in, or packed her snack bag with gummy bears and apple slices, he realized how much he had missed, and how much he would never allow himself to miss again. It was Sunday afternoon. Naima stood in the kitchen slicing mangoes, while Kayla leaned over the counter making flashcards for school. "You know what's cool, Mummy?" "What's that?" "When Daddy says something, and I already knew it." Naima smiled. "You like being the smartest one in the room, huh?" Kayla giggled. "I get it from you." Naima shook her head, amused. "I'm sure you do." Kayla paused. "Can he come over again today?" Naima looked at her. "Did he ask to?" "No." "But you can call him." Naima raised an eyebrow. "Why me?" "Because when you call, he says yes even faster." Naima turned back to her slicing, heart warm but cautious. An hour later, Zayden did show up, carrying a brown bag of cinnamon rolls and 2 extra packs of art markers. "Bribe delivery," he said, handing them to Kayla. She squealed and ran to set up her drawing corner. Naima met his gaze. "Bribes now. I'm trying to get voted favorite parent. It's not going well." She smirked. "Good." They settled into a rhythm again. Kayla drew in the living room, while Naima and Zayden sat near the dining table going over her school calendar. "She has a field trip in 2 weeks," Naima said. "You'll need to submit a chaperone form if you want to go." Zayden nodded. "Already asked for it. She gave me a copy yesterday." Naima raised a brow. "Impressive." Zayden hesitated, then looked her in the eye. "I meant what I said in that text. I'm not building anything anymore unless she's part of it." Naima's expression softened, but she didn't speak. "She makes me better," he added quietly. "You both do." For a long beat, silence filled the space between them. Then Naima said, "Keep proving it." Zayden nodded. "Every day." That night, as he tucked Kayla in, she grabbed his face between her hands and whispered, "I'm glad you're not just a story anymore." Zayden felt something in his chest break open. "I'll always be real now," he said. "I promise." The next morning, Naima found herself standing in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection longer than usual. She touched her necklace, the one Kayla made out of yarn and beads, and thought about what her life looked like just a year ago. Just her and her little girl. No noise, no confusion, just survival. And now there was another heartbeat in their routine. Someone rebuilding, not begging, just showing up. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was real. And maybe, just maybe, that was worth hoping for again. Naima hadn't forgiven. Not completely, but she had witnessed growth. Witnessed a man do what most never have the courage to, take responsibility not for applause, but because it's right. Forgiveness wasn't weakness, and healing wasn't loud. Sometimes it happened in quiet kitchens over flashcards and mango slices. Sometimes it looked like letting someone in, not because you forgot the pain, but because you finally saw change. Kayla sat at the dining table, tongue slightly out as she colored in a giraffe with purple spots. Her braids swung as she concentrated. Zayden sat across from her, pretending to study the animal's legs as if he were inspecting fine art. "I don't know," he said. "This giraffe might be too fashionable." Kayla grinned. "Fashionable is good. Mummy says confidence is an accessory." Zayden looked up. "She said that." Kayla nodded with pride. Last week, when I wore stripes with polka dots, Zayden chuckled. She's right. Naima, listening from the kitchen, couldn't help but smile. It was moments like these, the small ones, the easy ones, that made her pause. Not because she was unsure, but because they felt like the beginning of something whole. She'd been cautious, patient, watchful, but Zayden had been present, steady. Still, she reminded herself every day, trust isn't restored with grand gestures. It lives in the small things, like purple giraffes, like juice boxes in backpacks, like showing up every time, even when it's inconvenient. By mid-morning, Zayden and Naima took Kayla to the community book fair. The auditorium buzzed with excited kids and tired parents. Paperbacks and coloring books lined the tables. Volunteers in bright shirts helped organize the chaos. Kayla darted between shelves with her usual burst of energy, scanning titles, pointing out anything with animals. Zayden followed close behind, arms already full with 3 books she insisted she couldn't live without. She's got expensive taste, he joked. She gets that from me, Naima replied with a soft smirk, flipping through a health journal nearby. Zayden leaned in slightly. I don't mind. I'd give her the world. Naima looked at him. She doesn't want the world, just time. That quieted him, and he knew she was right. After they checked out, and Kayla was lost in a new storybook on the car ride home, Zayden turned the radio down. I wanted to ask you something, he said carefully. Naima raised an eyebrow. I've been offered a new role, he said. Still in Detroit, smaller team, less travel, a cut in title, but I'd be here, fully. Naima's fingers tensed slightly on the steering wheel. You're walking away from Miami? He nodded. I already did. Turned it down 2 weeks ago. She looked at him. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to see if I could still show up, without making it about sacrifice. I didn't want to throw it in your face like proof. Naima's voice was soft. It is proof. I'm not chasing legacy anymore, Naima. I want to be here. Not just for Kayla, but for whatever this could become. He didn't say us. He didn't force it. He left the air open. Naima looked ahead at the road. I've never asked you for anything. Zayden nodded. And that's why I'm offering it now. Back home, Kayla napped on the couch with a book draped over her chest. Zayden lingered at the door. Naima walked him to the steps. He hesitated, then spoke. I know you're not ready to say anything yet, and that's okay. I'm not asking for your heart, Naima. I just want to earn the chance to be close enough if you ever want to hand it back. She looked at him, tired eyes holding years of restraint and quiet strength. I don't need flowers or apologies, she said. I know. I don't need big words or rings. I wouldn't give them yet. Naima leaned against the doorframe. I just need to know that I won't have to start over again, alone. Zayden stepped closer. You won't. Then he leaned forward, not for a kiss, but just to rest his forehead against hers. A gesture of peace, of promise. They stood there for a moment, no rush, no heat, just warmth. When he pulled back, she didn't stop him. And for now, that was enough. Later that night, Naima journaled by her bedroom window. She wrote down a single sentence. He didn't try to fix me today. He just sat beside the pieces. The following week, Kayla came home with a family project, one where she had to draw everyone in her world. Naima expected it to be her and Kayla. Maybe Jordan, maybe the giraffe plush she still kept by her bed. But when she looked at the drawing, she saw 4 figures. Naima, Kayla, Zayden, and a heart in the center with all 3 names inside. I wanted to make a heart that holds everybody, Kayla explained, pointing at each name. Naima blinked through the sting in her eyes. You did perfect, baby. Daddy helped me spell your name right, she whispered. Naima hugged her. And that night, she didn't dream of disappointment. She dreamt of that heart, holding, staying, beating. Kayla's birthday was approaching, and she had only one wish. I want both Mummy and Daddy there, she announced during dinner, voice firm like she'd been practicing. Naima blinked. Baby, we talked about... I know, Kayla cut in, But I want you both. Zayden, seated beside her, cleared his throat. If Mommy's okay with it, I'd like to come. Naima stared at the spaghetti on her plate. She wasn't afraid of the event. She wasn't even angry anymore. But she feared hope, the slow, creeping kind that could collapse you if the other shoe ever dropped. Still, she said, "Okay." Kyla clapped, and Zayden mouthed a quiet, "Thank you." The day of the party, Naima set up the backyard with streamers, balloons, and paper butterflies. Jordan helped, rolling her eyes every 5 seconds, but she still wore the best aunt ever shirt Kyla insisted on. Zayden arrived early. No flowers, no flashy gifts, just a bounce house, which Kyla ran into screaming, "Daddy's the best!" Naima raised a brow. "You bought a bounce house?" "I rented it." She said it in a dream, literally told me she wanted one. I wasn't about to lose her trust over a birthday wish. Naima almost laughed. "You heard her dream?" He grinned. "I was on the phone. She talks in her sleep." That did make her laugh. As guests arrived, Zayden took the role of host like second nature. He served cupcakes, danced to kids' music, even got his suit dirty trying to help a toddler off the slide. Naima watched him, watched Kyla, watched how natural they looked in motion together. There was something heavy about seeing the life she once imagined, now unfolding in fragments before her. But this wasn't a return to the past. It was something new, not perfect, not promised, but present. And that was rare. Later, after everyone left and Kyla had crashed from sugar and excitement, Naima handed Zayden a damp towel for his dirt-stained shirt. "You didn't have to do all that. I wanted to." She nodded. "You looked like a good father today." He held her gaze. "I'm trying to be a consistent one. You set the standard. I didn't set anything. I survived. There's a difference." Zayden stepped closer. "You did more than survive, Naima. You built her into someone whole, happy, free. She's not broken yet, but she watches. Kids always watch. She sees love." Naima crossed her arms. "Love doesn't mean safe. Love isn't a band-aid." "I know," Zayden said. "That's why I'm not asking for anything tonight." "Then, why are you here?" He exhaled. "Because even if I don't get a second chance, I won't miss another one." That night, Naima stood in Kayla's room while she slept. The moonlight painted soft shadows across the floor. She remembered the nights she cried alone after giving birth. The fear, the silence, the ache of raising a child without the man who made her. She had been so young, so lost, and so determined. She touched Kayla's forehead. "You're the only reason I kept going." Behind her, the hallway light flicked on. Zayden stood in the doorway, unsure if he should enter. Naima didn't tell him to leave. He stepped in slowly. "She's magic," he whispered. Naima didn't argue. He leaned against the wall, not too close. "I used to dream of what this would feel like," he said. "And now?" she asked. "I'm scared it's not mine to have." She turned to him. "You don't get to claim it. You build it. Every day. I'm willing. I don't want promises. I won't give them." Naima stared at him in the dim light. No makeup, no performance, no filter. "Then stay," she said. "Just that. Stay. Not forever. Not even tonight. Just now." He didn't speak. He just nodded. And stayed. The next morning, Naima woke early. Zayden had fallen asleep on the living room couch, one arm over his eyes, the other clutching a half-read children's book. She covered him with a blanket, then walked into the kitchen to make breakfast. It wasn't a love story yet. It wasn't a reunion, but it was a beginning. And this time, it was built on presence, not performance. Have you ever had to rebuild trust, piece by piece, after someone let you down? What small things meant the most to you? Let us know in the comments. If Naima and Zayden's story is tugging at your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The journey isn't over yet. Zayden never imagined that rebuilding a bond would take this much quiet work. There were no shortcuts, no boardroom tactics, just small, real efforts. And each one mattered more than anything he'd ever done in business. It had been nearly 8 months since Kayla first called him Dad. The first time she'd whispered it, He had to walk away to hide the tears. He didn't want to scare her by breaking down, but that moment lived in him, etched, permanent. Now, Saturday mornings became their thing. Kayla liked pancakes with too many chocolate chips, banana slices on top, and whipped cream in the shape of a smiley face. Zayden couldn't cook to save his life, but he showed up early to help stir the batter and wash the dishes. Naima often teased, "You're just here for quality control." He never denied it. The rhythm of their lives slowly shifted. He and Naima never rushed into labels again. They hadn't even discussed what they were now. Friends? Co-parents? More. There were kisses, late-night phone calls, shared glances that lingered. But no titles. Zayden respected her space. She had earned the right to set the terms. He had destroyed too much with his past fear. But one evening, Kayla asked the question that cracked something open. "Are you and Mommy going to get married like Miss Angela and Mr. Troy?" Naima choked on her tea. Zayden blinked. Kayla waited, legs swinging from the chair, expression innocent. Zayden looked at Naima, silently asking for permission to speak. She gave a small nod. He knelt beside Kayla. "That's a big question, sweetheart." Kayla shrugged. "Well, you're always here, and Mummy laughs more, and you kissed her yesterday." "I saw—" Naima's cheeks turned red. "Kayla." Zayden bit back a smile. "I love your Mummy very much, and I love you, but grown-ups take time to decide those things, okay?" Kayla seemed satisfied with that. "Okay, but I think you should marry her. She's really pretty." Naima laughed, loud, embarrassed and warm. After Kayla ran off to play, Naima sat beside Zayden on the couch. "She's bold. She's honest." They sat in silence, tension humming. "I don't want to hurt her," Naima whispered. "You won't," he said. "And I don't plan to ever hurt either of you again." Naima turned to him. "I believe you're trying." "I am." She looked down. "But are you ready for what comes next?" He exhaled. "I wake up every day hoping I am." The next week, Naima's aunt fell sick in Atlanta, and she had to travel for a few days. Zayden offered to take full care of Kayla. "I don't want to disrupt her schedule." Naima hesitated. "You won't," he said. "Let me handle it." Kayla packed her little pink suitcase with stuffed animals, crayons, and books. She jumped into Zayden's arms like it was Christmas. His penthouse wasn't child-proof, but by the second night, it looked like a second-grade classroom. Crayon drawings taped to the fridge, Barbies on the kitchen island, a step stool in the bathroom. Zayden had never felt more grounded. Bedtime became his favorite moment. He read The Princess and the Frog for the 5th time. Kayla listened with wide eyes, correcting him whenever he changed a line. "You skipped a word, Daddy." "Sorry." Quality control again. They laughed. As she drifted to sleep, her tiny fingers wrapped around his pinky. He didn't move for an hour, just watched her sleep, heart stretched beyond recognition. On the final night, Naima FaceTimed them. Kayla showed off her drawings and narrated every detail of their daddy-daughter week. Zayden watched Naima smile through the screen, her eyes soft but searching. When Kayla went to bed, Zayden returned to the phone. "She missed you," he said. "She looks happy." "She is." They paused. "I saw her cry once," he admitted. "On the second night. She missed your smell, your hugs. I held her until she stopped, but it reminded me she's still a child, still learning what it means to trust." Naima's voice cracked. "You did good. Not enough. But I'm trying. I see it." Zayden rubbed his neck. "Can I ask something?" "Sure. When do I get to take you on a date? Just you?" Naima smiled faintly. "Are you asking me out, Zayden Calloway?" "I've never been more nervous about a yes or no." Naima laughed softly. "Ask me again when I'm home." She returned that Friday. Zayden picked her up from the airport. No driver, no assistant, just him. Naima wore a simple black coat, hair tied back, eyes tired but still glowing. As they hugged, he whispered, "I missed you." She held him a beat longer than expected. "Me too." They didn't go to a fancy restaurant. They walked along the Detroit Riverwalk, hot chocolates in hand, coats zipped, the wind brushing against their cheeks. It felt like their early days, before the hurt, before the lies, before his mother's judgment poisoned their joy. "I've changed," he said, watching the water. "I see it. I still have a long way to go." Naima nodded. "So do I. I've had to do everything alone for years. Letting you in fully. It's not easy." He stopped walking, turned to her. "I don't expect ease. I just want honesty." She looked at him for a long time, then reached out, took his hand. "Okay." They walked on. That Sunday they had dinner at Naima's apartment. Kayla, Zayden, and Naima. It wasn't extravagant. Just pasta, garlic bread, and laughter. Kayla told them about her school's talent show. Zayden promised to help her practice her magic tricks, even though they were mostly vanishing cookies from plates. After Kayla went to bed, Naima handed Zayden a small envelope. "What's this?" "She drew this during art class. Said you should have it." He opened it. Inside was a drawing, stick figures labeled Mommy, Me, and Daddy with a heart above their heads. Zayden blinked fast. Naima placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're becoming her safe space. Don't lose that." "I won't." She sat beside him. "Neither of us can afford broken promises anymore." Zayden reached for her hand. "This time, I'm building with both of you in mind." She leaned in. They kissed again. This time, slower, deeper. The kind that said, "We've been through it. We're still here. Together." Kayla stood in front of the classroom board, proudly holding up her science project, a miniature, model of the solar system she and Zayden had worked on together for 2 weeks. Each planet was painted with care, the strings holding them up color-coordinated, and her handwriting labeled every orbit. Naima stood at the back of the classroom beside Zayden, arms folded, watching their daughter beam. "She's grown so much," he whispered. Naima nodded slowly. "She's thriving." Zayden's eyes stayed on Kayla. "Thank you for raising her the way you did. I see pieces of both of us in her, but the best parts come from you." Naima didn't respond immediately. She kept her eyes forward, but her heart fluttered at the sincerity in his voice. After the presentation, Kayla rushed to them, beaming. "Did you see? Mr. Hanley said I did amazing." Zayden knelt and opened his arms. "You were incredible. Those labels? Perfect spacing." Kayla giggled and hugged him tightly. "Thanks, Daddy." Naima's breath caught. Daddy. The word had once been an empty ache in her chest. Now it rang through the hallway like healing. Over the next several weeks, Zayden became a constant presence. Not intrusive, not desperate, just steady. He dropped off school lunches when Naima forgot, helped Kayla with math homework, even brought over groceries when he knew she was too tired after a double shift. There were still awkward moments, unresolved emotions, but they no longer yelled over each other. They listened. One night, Kayla had a nightmare. She woke up crying, shaking from a dream she couldn't explain. Naima rushed in. Zayden, who had been asleep on the couch during one of his overnight visits, was at the bedroom door in seconds. Kayla reached for him without hesitation. He sat beside her, held her close, humming softly. Naima watched, tears gathering. 6 years ago, she hadn't imagined this picture. Now it was real. That same night, after Kayla fell asleep again, Naima stepped onto the balcony to breathe. Zayden joined her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "She's lucky to have you now. I'm the lucky one," he replied. A beat passed. Then he said it quietly. "I want more." Naima turned. More? More than drop-offs and late-night calls. More than being the dad who shows up sometimes. "I want to build a real home with you and Kayla." She folded her arms, not in defense, but in fear. "We've built stability, Zayden. We can't risk shaking that up again." "I know, but I want to try, this time with honesty, with patience. I'm not rushing you, Naima. I'm just saying I'm here. Fully." Naima didn't respond then, but she didn't say no. Weeks turned into months. They slipped into something resembling rhythm. Family dinners turned into game nights. Weekend outings replaced awkward silences. One Saturday, while they all baked cookies, Kayla asked, "When are we all going to live in one house?" Naima blinked. Zayden froze. "I like when Daddy stays over," she added innocently, licking frosting off her finger. Naima crouched in front of her. "One day, sweet girl. We'll figure it out together." Kayla grinned and ran off to decorate more cookies. Zayden looked at Naima. "She already sees us as one." "I know," Naima whispered. Later that night, Naima sat in bed, scrolling through old photos. Pictures of Kayla's first steps, birthday parties, scraped knees, ballet recitals. Zayden had missed them all, but he was here now. She got up, found him in the living room cleaning up Kayla's toys. "She called you Daddy," Naima said. He looked up. "I heard. She never said that before. I'll never forget the first time she did," he said. "Or the weight of it." Naima stepped closer. "I've hated you before. I hated me too." Silence hung between them. "But I'm starting to believe this version of you," she added. Zayden's eyes searched hers. "Can I kiss you?" Naima took a breath, then leaned forward. Their kiss wasn't urgent. It was familiar, slow, a reunion. Zayden didn't propose overnight. He didn't rush back into declarations. Instead, he stayed. They rebuilt their love in small, consistent ways. He helped Kayla build a lemonade stand in the summer. He rubbed Naima's feet when she got home after 14-hour shifts. He learned how to braid Kayla's hair, practiced until his fingers got it right. Naima saw the change, not the flashy, gift-giving man from years ago. This was a man who understood commitment now. On Kayla's 7th birthday, they threw a backyard party. Family, friends, laughter, balloons. As the sun dipped low, Kayla stood on a chair and said, "I have everything I ever wanted. Mommy, Daddy, and cupcakes." Everyone clapped. Zayden pulled Naima aside. "Marry me. Not today, not tomorrow. But when you're ready." Naima looked up at him. "No big ring?" she teased. "No rush either," he said. "Just the promise that I'll be here when you are." She smiled. "I'll let you know." And she did, not because he pressured her, but because he proved her love was never a maybe. It was a promise, one that waited, and one that finally came home. The community health fair buzzed with music, booths, and cheerful chaos. Naima helped organize it through the clinic's outreach team. It was a way to give back and offer free pediatric checkups, wellness advice, and immunizations. Kayla tugged at her hand, wearing a little volunteer t-shirt 3 sizes too big. "Mummy, can I give out the stickers now?" Kayla asked, beaming up at her. Naima crouched to Kayla's level. "Yes, but stay where I can see you, okay?" Kayla nodded and skipped off toward the booth with sticker sheets in her arms. Zayden was somewhere on site too. Since he started funding the clinic's mobile unit, he'd been involved with events like this, not just as a donor, but as a volunteer. Naima stood under the shaded canopy by the vaccine station, handing out flyers, giving directions. Her gaze drifted toward the far corner, where laughter erupted. Kayla was handing a smiling father a superhero bandage and telling his son, "You're brave like my dad." Naima's heart tugged. Kayla had accepted Zayden so fully it humbled her, but she hadn't said it to his face yet. "Not Dad, not directly." Naima caught her breath as Zayden approached. He wore jeans and a navy shirt, pushing a rolling cart of donated school supplies. Sweat clung to his temple, but he grinned when he reached her. "Hey," he said, handing her a cold water bottle. "Thanks," she said, taking it gratefully. "Kayla's turning into a community leader." He chuckled. "She told me to stop calling her baby girl in public. Said I was embarrassing her." Naima laughed too. "That means she likes you." Zayden's gaze softened. "Means more than you know." There was a pause, comfortable now, no longer heavy with regret or unspoken truths. Just air they could both breathe. "She called me Dad this morning," Zayden said, almost in a whisper. Naima turned slowly. "She did?" He nodded. "We were packing the books for today. I asked if she was tired and she said, 'No, Dad, I'm okay,' like it was the most normal thing in the world." Naima blinked hard. She's never said that to anyone before. Zayden ran a hand through his hair. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to scare her off or make it a big deal. You didn't need to, Naima replied, her voice quiet. She said it because she feels it. They looked toward Kayla, who was now sticking a superhero badge on a toddler's shirt. She glanced back, saw both of them watching, and waved. Zayden lifted his hand slightly, overwhelmed. Naima touched his arm. Go thank her. She gave you something big today. He hesitated, then nodded, walking slowly toward Kayla like he didn't want to break the moment. Later that evening, after the cleanup and chaos had passed, Naima and Kayla returned home. The apartment was dim and cool, a welcome escape from the heat of the day. Kayla curled up on the couch with a bowl of cereal. Can we watch the movie with the singing animals again? Naima smiled. Only if you promise not to fall asleep this time. I won't. Kayla yawned, completely unconvinced. Naima turned on the TV, set the volume low, and sat beside her. Kayla leaned into her side, warm and soft, the scent of sunscreen still on her skin. Halfway through the opening song, Kayla said, Mr. Zayden is my dad now. Naima froze, her hand mid-air between bites. Kayla looked up. He told me I could call him that only if I wanted. I do. Naima looked into her daughter's eyes. How do you feel when you're with him? Safe, Kayla said instantly. He listens a lot, and he gave me that chapter book we saw in the store, even when I said we didn't need to buy anything. Naima blinked back sudden tears. He cares about you. I know, Kayla said, and leaned back into her again. It's like I had 2 pieces of a puzzle, and now I have 3. Naima kissed the top of her head. You are so wise, my girl. Kayla giggled. I get it from you. Days passed. Zayden's presence in their lives became routine. School pickups, Friday ice cream trips, Sunday park strolls. But one afternoon changed everything. Naima came home late from work to find Zayden sitting on her apartment stoop with a duffel bag beside him. She frowned. What happened? He stood up, looking exhausted. My mom showed up at my condo, said she heard about Kayla. Naima's shoulders tensed. She asked if I'd lost my mind. Zayden said, voice low. Said no child born without marriage or plan should be part of my life. Naima folded her arms. And what did you say? I told her Kayla is mine, full stop. I told her the only thing I regret is not knowing her sooner. Naima stepped closer. And she said if I continue this, she'll cut me off from the Miami expansion, that I'm throwing away the future she built. Silence. Zayden met her eyes. So I told her, this is the future I choose. Naima felt her breath hitch. I packed my bags, he added. I'm moving out of that place. I'm buying a house nearby. Somewhere Kayla can have her own room if she wants to stay over. Somewhere close to you. Naima's heart thudded. You're really choosing this? He nodded. No pressure on you. This isn't about us being a couple again. This is about showing Kayla that I'm here to stay. Naima looked down, overwhelmed. Zayden reached for her hand. I don't need forgiveness. I just want to be worthy of the title she gave me. Tears stung her eyes. You already are. He blinked. What? She wouldn't have called you Dad if she didn't believe it, Naima said. She doesn't hand her heart to just anyone. Neither do I. For the first time, she reached for him. They stood in the hallway for a long moment. Hands linked. Breaths shared. Not lovers, not strangers, but parents, rebuilding trust, rewriting a future, together. Zayden stood in the middle of the half-painted living room, holding a roller and squinting at the color swatch Naima had taped to the wall. So this is morning sky grey. Looks more like late rent blue to me. Naima snorted from where she knelt, unboxing Kayla's bookshelf. You're such a complainer for someone who begged to paint it himself. I didn't beg, he muttered. Kayla peeked around the corner with a juice pouch. You said, please let me do the grown-up job. That's begging. Zayden sighed and grinned. Traitor. It had been 3 weeks since he gave up his penthouse and bought the modest 3-bedroom in South Shore, close to Naima and in the same school district Kayla loved. The move wasn't about grandeur. It was about roots, about being present, about proving this wasn't temporary. Today, Kayla was helping them set up the reading nook she'd picked out from a thrift store visit. It had a beanbag, shelves, and a string of fairy lights Xaden somehow managed to tangle worse than Christmas cords. "I want this to be our spot," Kayla said proudly, "where we read together." Naima's eyes softened. Like a family library, Xaden lowered his roller. "You can read to me, Kayla. I want to hear you do all the voices." "I do the best dragon voice," she declared. "I believe that," he said, wiping his hands and crossing to them. There was a pause, one filled with peace. Naima stood up and brushed dust off her pants. "We'll break for lunch soon." Xaden touched her wrist. "Naima, about earlier. That moment in your hallway." She looked up. "I don't want to confuse things," he said, "but I've never felt more grounded than I do with you two. And I know I messed up in the past, but I'd like to try." Her heart beat faster. "I'm not asking you to rush," he added, "but I love Kayla, and I've never stopped loving you." Naima swallowed. "This can't be a project for you, or a guilt fix. This is life. It's slow, messy, and has no clean endings." "I know," he said, "but I want in. For all of it." She didn't speak for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." That single word shifted something between them. She didn't say she forgave him. She didn't need to. Her acceptance, her willingness to move forward, that was bigger than any apology. By evening, Kayla had fallen asleep on the couch, head tilted back, mouth open, a picture book still balanced on her lap. Naima covered her with a blanket and turned to Xaden. "Thanks for helping today." He leaned against the doorway. "Thanks for letting me." She hesitated. "Do you want to stay for dinner?" He blinked. "You sure?" She smiled. "Yeah. I have enough pasta to feed a small country." They moved quietly around the kitchen. Xaden chopped basil while Naima stirred sauce. They moved in rhythm, no awkwardness, no weight. After they ate, she handed him a dish towel. As he dried, he said, "This feels like home." Naima paused, looking at him. "Even if we never get labels," he said, "I just want to be around. Whatever you need." She dried her hands. "What if I need honesty above everything else?" He met her gaze. "Then you'll have it. Always." She didn't say more, but her fingers brushed his as she passed the dish rack. The next day, Kayla had a school assembly. Parents were invited to attend, and Xaden asked if he could come. Naima agreed, though she felt a little tense walking into that auditorium beside him. Whispers traveled fast in small school communities. But Xaden didn't flinch. He nodded to other parents. He held the door open for a teacher. He stood tall beside her, like he belonged there. Kayla beamed from the stage. When her class performed their poem about family, she glanced at them. During the final line, "The heart is home, and love is our roof," Xaden looked away quickly. Naima saw the shimmer in his eyes. Afterward, Kayla ran into his arms. "You were amazing," he said, lifting her off the ground. She laughed. "I saw you clapping. You stole the show." As they left, another parent approached Naima, a woman in a crisp green blazer. "Excuse me," she said. "I'm Miss Sheridan, the school counselor. I just wanted to say Kayla seems much happier this term, more settled. Whatever changes you've made, they're working." Naima smiled politely. "Thank you. I'm guessing that's her father." Naima paused. Xaden looked over, waiting. She nodded. "Yes, that's her dad." Miss Sheridan smiled. "It's good to see her so supported." As they walked to the car, Naima said softly, "She sees you. Really sees you." Xaden exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for years. "She's everything I never knew I needed," he said. Naima looked up at him. "So are you," he added. She didn't reply, but she reached for his hand. And for once, they walked together without fear. That weekend, they hosted a small gathering at Xaden's house. Pizza, board games, and cartoons. Kayla invited 2 classmates, and Naima invited her cousin and best friend. They all noticed how Zayden didn't hover or show off. He sat on the floor helping the kids build puzzles. He served juice and let them drench the table in glitter. "He's trying hard," Naima's cousin whispered in the kitchen. "I know," Naima replied. "You ready to believe him?" Naima looked into the living room, where Kayla sat in Zayden's lap, reading aloud. "I'm trying." That night, when everyone left and Kayla was in bed, Naima stood on the porch with Zayden. The moon was full. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and dish soap. "Would you come with me to her doctor's appointment next week?" she asked. He turned. "Yes. Of course. She has questions about growing up," Naima added. "I think having both of us there matters." "I'll be there." She nodded. Then, after a pause, she asked if we'll ever live in the same house. Zayden hesitated. "What did you say?" "I said maybe." He smiled. "That's better than a no." Naima turned to face him fully. "We're building something, Zayden. Slow and steady. Don't rush it." "I won't." "I've changed," she said. "I don't love blindly anymore." "I know. I need trust before touch. Respect before romance." He stepped closer. "Then let me earn all of it." Her voice softened. "You are." They didn't kiss. Not yet. But his hand brushed hers, and they stood that way until the porch light flickered off. Naima stood at the mirror, adjusting the pearl studs Kayla had insisted she wear. The little girl had called them Mummy's magic earrings and swore they gave her super strength. Naima smiled at the memory, her fingers still for a moment as she stared at her reflection. She looked peaceful. There were faint lines at the corners of her eyes, a new depth in her gaze, but her skin glowed. Not from makeup or rest, but from clarity, from years of surviving heartbreak and choosing herself. Tonight was the first official gala for Rising Rooted, the non-profit Naima had quietly launched a year ago to support single mothers and women who had experienced betrayal. What began as a blog of anonymous journal entries had grown into a grant-funded, citywide network for healing and empowerment. The event was being held in a midtown hotel ballroom, elegant but not flashy. Just the way she liked things now. There was a knock on her bedroom door. "Come in." Kayla peeked in, beaming. "You look like a queen." Naima turned to her. "And you look like my princess." Kayla wore a soft blue dress with a satin bow at the back. Her hair was done in gentle curls, and she carried a tiny purse over one shoulder. "Daddy's downstairs," she added. "He looks nervous." Naima smiled. "Let's not keep him waiting." Zayden was adjusting his tie at the base of the stairs when Naima and Kayla descended. His eyes met Naima's and held. He didn't speak for a moment. Then, "You're stunning." Naima nodded with a soft smile. "Thanks." He offered his arm, and she took it. It felt normal now. Not forced. Not awkward. It felt earned. The ballroom glowed with warm lights and floral centerpieces. People mingled near the silent auction table, while others circled the buffet. Naima was greeted by a board member, then a donor, then two women from the early pilot program who credited her for helping them rebuild. Zayden stood with Kayla at the table of cupcakes, letting her pick her favorite. He didn't hover around Naima, didn't try to steal the spotlight. He was simply present. When Naima finally returned to their side, Kayla whispered, "I saved you the red velvet one." "Because you always pick red velvet when you're tired." Naima crouched and kissed her cheek. "Thank you, sweetheart." Zayden leaned down. "She's been passing out cards that say she's my publicist." Naima laughed. "I believe it." The host called for attention. Naima was being introduced for her keynote. She kissed Kayla's forehead, then Zayden's cheek, not even thinking about the gesture until it was done. It felt natural. She walked on stage. The applause was warm but respectful, the kind that came from people who understood pain. She paused, then spoke. "I'm not here tonight because I never broke," she said. "I'm here because I did, and chose to heal anyway." Silence, then breathless attention. "I was abandoned while pregnant, betrayed without warning. I gave birth alone, raised my daughter without support, and for a long time I believed the silence I received was what I deserved. She paused again. But healing has a funny way of demanding that we write new stories. So I did. She went on to talk about the founding of Rising Rooted, the hundreds of women it served, the nights she doubted herself, the nights Kyla hugged her and said, "We got this." When she ended, the crowd rose to their feet. Zayden clapped the hardest. Kyla jumped up and down, yelling, "That's my mommy!" Tears pricked Naima's eyes. She walked back into the crowd as the music started. Zayden met her halfway. He didn't say anything. He just held out his hand. "Dance?" he asked. She hesitated. "I'm not good at slow songs," she warned. "I don't care," he replied. She placed her hand in his. They swayed, gently, cautiously, like two people learning rhythm all over again. "You were powerful up there," Zayden said quietly. "I wasn't trying to be," she replied. "That's what made it powerful." Naima looked up at him. "Zayden, where do we go from here?" He held her closer. "Anywhere you're willing to let me follow." She leaned her head on his chest, not as a promise, but as a beginning. The gala ended, but the energy didn't. That night, back at Naima's house, after Kyla had fallen asleep across her storybooks, Zayden lingered. They stood in the kitchen. Naima reached for the leftover tea kettle. "Want some?" Zayden nodded. She poured. They sat in silence for a while. Then Zayden broke it. "She called me Dad again today." Casually, like she didn't even think about it. Naima smiled into her mug. "She means it." "I don't want to fail her," he said. "You won't. She's so much of you. Strong, curious, kind. She's a lot of you too," Naima added. "Quick to learn, big-hearted. And that smirk. All yours." Zayden chuckled. "I love her so much it scares me." Naima met his gaze. "Love doesn't have to come with fear. It can come with patience." He stood, crossed to her. "Nai, do you still love me?" She looked up. "That's a big question. I know. I never stopped loving the man you used to be. But now, I'm learning to love the man you're becoming." He reached for her hand. "I want to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth that chance." She let his fingers close around hers. Her voice was soft. "Then don't say it. Show it." He nodded. And for the first time in years, there was nothing more to explain. Just the quiet truth between them. A second chance. Earned. Chapter 10, Part 2. The next morning brought a soft hush to the house. The kind that only came after clarity had settled into the bones of a home. Birds chirped outside. Light filtered through Kyla's curtain as she snuggled deeper beneath her covers, her little arm flung across her plush unicorn. Naima moved through the kitchen in a robe, quietly prepping pancakes. She heard Zayden's steps before she saw him. He entered, barefoot, hair tousled, face at peace. "Morning," he said. She turned. "Coffee? Please." He joined her at the counter, watching her flip pancakes. "Can I take you out?" "Just us, somewhere calm. Tomorrow?" Naima paused, flipping the pancake with more intention than necessary. "Not fancy," he added quickly. "Maybe the botanical garden. That's where you used to take Kyla on your days off." Her brows lifted. "You remembered?" He nodded. "You mentioned it once. Said the flowers made her feel like magic was real." Naima turned the heat off. "All right. Botanical garden it is." His smile was slow, sincere. Later that day, Naima watched him and Kyla build a birdhouse kit on the porch. He let her use the hammer, guided her gently. They laughed when the nails bent and cheered when the roof held steady. It was ordinary and beautiful. Naima captured the moment in her heart, silently. That night, she sat by her bedroom window. Zayden knocked once and peeked in. "Hey, I won't stay long." "Come in," she said. He stepped in, holding a small box. "Kyla helped me pick this." She took it, opened the lid. Inside was a charm bracelet. One charm shaped like a book, another like a tiny pair of ballet flats. The third was a heart engraved with the date Kyla first called him Dad. Naima looked up, emotional. I wanted to give you something that marks this new beginning. Not a ring, not yet, just acknowledgement. She traced the charms with her finger. Thank you. He hesitated, then said, If you ever do want more, I'll wait. However long it takes. I'll wait. She stepped toward him and hugged him. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't about heat. It was about healing. Let's just keep showing up. That's enough for now, she whispered. Spring came, and with it, Kayla's school talent show. Naima sat in the front row beside Zayden. She wore the charm bracelet. He wore the goofy tie Kayla had made him for Father's Day. Kayla stepped onto the stage, took a deep breath, and read a poem she wrote. My mommy is the sun. My daddy is the sky. I grow between them, like a tree reaching high and high they show up. Every morning, even when clouds appear, because love means being present even when you're scared or near tears. Tears spilled freely in the room. Naima clutched Zayden's hand. He squeezed it, blinking fast. Kayla ended with a proud curtsy. Backstage, she ran into their arms. Was it good? You made half the room cry, Zayden said, lifting her. Naima laughed. You were perfect. They walked to the car hand in hand, Kayla in the middle. No grand declarations, no fireworks, just love. The real kind, the kind that stayed. Thank you for watching this story on our channel. If Naima and Zayden's journey touched your heart, please like, comment your favorite moment, and subscribe to stay with us for more real, powerful love stories. Share this with someone who believes in second chances. See you in the next video.